now. Don't stop me from making a YouTube video. Hello and welcome back to the Raw Built channel. Today we're going to be talking about how I self-manage my entire Airbnb portfolio and how you can also self-manage your short-term rentals no matter where you live. Houston, Texas, Antarctica, Copenhagen, Canada. Can't think of a fifth place in the world. No matter where in the world you live, you should theoretically be able to manage your short-term rental no matter where you are. So this exact concept seems to trip up so many people because when you hear about the management of Airbnbs, you hear about all the late night calls, all the crazy guests, all of the amenities, all of the logistics that go into running an Airbnb. If you were to compare short-term rentals to medium-term rentals or long-term rentals, then short-term rentals definitely require the most amount of work. And well, if it takes the most amount of work, how are you able to self-manage so many, Rob? And the answer is, I don't. What? All right, well, thanks for watching, bye. No, I'm just kidding. I don't because I build teams that help me self-manage every single one of my properties. Now, at this point in my career, I have roughly, I wanna say like 20 Airbnbs, maybe 19. I can't really tell you off the top of my head.
I'm kind of a big deal.
And just like that, I've become less relatable. But I also have a 20-unit motel currently being renovated. It's gonna become an Airbnb boutique hotel. Total, we're working with 40 doors at our disposal. And so with these 40 properties, we have built about 14 to 18 teams to help manage each of these properties. That's a lot of teams, and we utilize a lot of automations to help keep those teams organized. But we're not gonna talk about automations today. We're gonna actually talk about the team that you need to build to successfully run your Airbnb and who the key players are. There are 6 key players. The first one we're gonna talk about is definitely the most important, but there are definitely a few of these that I know you're gonna be like, what? I didn't even think about that role. So you're gonna wanna make sure to stick around to the very end because I promise you, if you do, you'll be able to crush your short-term rental from anywhere in the universe, so long as you can get Wi-Fi. Let's go. You can name your team anything you want. David Green, when he talks about long distance investing, he calls it his core 4. But for me, I call my Airbnb team the Airbnb Avengers because every single one of them are so crucial for my success, all right? And my number one Avenger for any property are my cleaners. The cleaners are what I consider the eyes and ears of my operation. A lot of people tend to skimp out on their cleaners, and I think that is actually a really bad idea. If you skimp out on your cleaners, I promise you, it will cost you thousands of dollars in the long run. But the reason that hiring a cleaner is so important is A, you can't do all the cleaning yourself. You might be able to do the cleanings if you own one property and you live nearby. But once you scale to 2, 3, 4, 5, it becomes increasingly difficult to do that and it's certainly not recommended. But to truly run as an Airbnb operator at scale, you have to quickly replace yourself in every component of the business as fast as possible. The cleaner is gonna be the best way to do that. The reason your cleaner is so important is because the cleaner is the person that's gonna be at the property the most out of anyone in the team, including yourself. If you think about your availability calendar and how often you're gonna be booked, you're gonna be seeing anywhere from 5 to, let's say, 10 sets of reservations every single month at any given Airbnb. And so naturally, that means that your unit needs to be cleaned 5 to 10 times per month. And so your cleaner is gonna be doing that. Now, ideally, when you're hiring your cleaner, you're not actually hiring someone to just come in and clean. You're also hiring someone to come back and report to you anything that might be wrong with the property. It could be a loose chair, it could be a broken fridge handle. It could also be just damages from the guest. If a guest damages an aspect of your home, how are you gonna find out? Because most guests aren't gonna fess up to it. And so you need your cleaner to report that back to you. And so this is why I say they are the eyes and ears of your operation. They're truly keeping track of every single thing of your Airbnb, and so you really need them to report back to you with every little thing that could be wrong. Most of the times and most of the failures that I've had in my Airbnb, because I've had many, I've hosted tens of thousands of people at this point.
People know me.
Is lack of accountability and lack of reporting metrics with my cleaning team. And what this specifically means is oftentimes I've told my cleaners, hey, I want you to clean and report back if anything is broken. But early on when I was having failures, I wasn't properly briefing them on the scope of their job, making sure that they were cleaning not just the inside, but the outside of the property. I wasn't providing them checklists. I wasn't doing anything like that. So when you have this loosey-goosey relationship where you're like, hey, clean my house, something broken, let me know, then a lot of stuff tends to fall through the cracks. There've been many times where I've checked into my Airbnb and pretty much shrieked in horror at the disrepair of so many items of that. And I'm sure a lot of you can probably relate to that. Why on earth would my cleaner not tell me this? And most of the time it's because you didn't tell them to tell you that specific thing. And so if you really start thinking about the cleaner of your business, it really does go beyond cleaning. It's almost like they're a cleaner and a reporter. of everything with your property. And this is why you don't want to skimp, because a cleaner comes into an Airbnb and they say, my job is to clean first and foremost. They don't pay me for the other stuff. So if you go to your cleaner and you say, hey, well, I need you to clean the windows, I need you to sweep outside, I need you to run through this checklist, I need you to tighten any loose chairs, and I need you to clean, but instead of paying you the $200 you asked for, I want to pay you $150, guess what? You're gonna have a failing Airbnb with 3 and 4-star reviews across the board. So this is why I really stress the importance of paying your cleaners what they're worth and not nickel and diming them on every single thing. It's really no surprise that my most expensive cleaners are by far my best cleaners. In Joshua Tree, California, I have a 300 square foot tiny home, charged me $85 to clean that house. Really expensive for a house that small, but I have never once in the 300 reviews gotten a complaint about cleaning. I've gotten the exact opposite, and that is an expense that has been worth it for me because they crush it for me time and time again. So that's gonna be the first key player on your team. Spend a little bit more time on this than I probably will for the rest of the team, but I wanted to because they are the most important person on your team, okay? The second person on your team, also very important, is your handyman. Maybe I need to recheck my biases. Or your handy woman. Listen, your handy person, whoever it is. The reason they're important is because they're gonna fix stuff. Now, let's just go back to your cleaners, right? I said they're the eyes and the ears of your operation. They're gonna say, hey Rob, hey Timothy, hey Carol, hey Karen.
One eternity later.
Hey Rob, this thing is broken, it needs to be fixed. Now, if it's super simple, your cleaner might be willing to fix it for you. So a light bulb needs to be changed or a battery needs to be swapped up. Most cleaners are gonna be okay with doing that. But once you need an actual tool to do something, this is typically my rule of thumb, like a screwdriver, they're most of the time not gonna mess with it. They'll say, hey Rob, this needs to be repaired. They'll communicate that to you, and then guess what? Call your handyman to come in and fix things. Now you gotta be pretty particular with your handyman or handywoman or handy person, because at the end of the day, handy people, in general, generalization here, they are not the most business-oriented, organized, or punctual people. And so you wanna find someone that you can really depend on, but at the same time, they might actually be very dependable. They just may be very busy. And here's what I've always found. If they're amazing and super dependable, then they are always busy. And so when you need that handy person, they're so busy that they can't actually get to your work. And so this is actually where I get into this groove specifically for this role, where I tend to try to find 1, 2, or 3 handymen that can help me out on a rotating basis. When I can find one that's just always solid and dependable, awesome. But I like to have a bit of a roster with handy people because they're just always out in the field fixing stuff. And I think there's so many variables within their job that keep them delayed at their job site, thus making it hard for them to be punctual for the jobs that you need. And this is really the hard part about Airbnbs, is that people tend to pay premium rates. And so when something is broken, you need it fixed super fast or else that person is gonna be demanding a refund. Now, a lot of you might be asking, well, Rob, why do you have 2 or 3 handymen but not 2 or 3 cleaners? And the reason being is when I find a cleaner, this isn't kind of like a, hey, when I need you, I'll call you. Is that cool? Whenever you're open, are you willing to come and clean for me? It's like a, hey, you're my cleaner. You're my girlfriend. Exclusivity here. We're not dating. I don't want you dating around with their other Airbnbs. When I say my place is open, I need you there. I need that commitment from my cleaner because cleaners are the backbone of my business, that I can't risk them saying, oh, I'm busy today, Rob, I'm sorry. Like, I'm always looking for cleaners that have the systems in place to make sure they're always at my properties at checkout. This to me is a non-negotiable. There are some of my properties in my portfolio where I have a backup, but it's a very, very rare thing. But the handy crew in general, actually what they call this in prison, the handy crew in general, there's a favorite and then there's a second string and then the third string. But really, I just can't stress enough how important they are because things do break in Airbnbs all the frickin' time. And a lot of the times I try to have systems in place that allow a guest to sort of problem solve on their own, but every so often I need a handyman to step in and get stuff done for me. And that's gonna be your second key player. And if you really think about it, the cleaners clean everything, they tell you when anything is broken, your handy people fix everything, and between these 2 people, they are the lifeblood of your business, but there are still 4 others that you're gonna need if you wanna survive this business. Number 3, do you like bugs? Do you like roaches and bed bugs and ticks and every other insect that exists? No, you probably don't. And guess who hates them more than you? Your guests. And guess who will complain? They see a little tiny cockroach this big that's not even inside your house but outside your house, and they'll ask for a refund and they'll complain to the Airbnb that you have bed bugs even though it's obviously a cockroach and it's 3 miles away from your Airbnb. Yeah, those are your guests. That's how guests act. When they see a cockroach, they're like, holy crap, the world's gonna end. Rob, I demand a back massage and a refund. And so that's why you need this third key player, which is gonna be your pest control person. Plain and simple, this should be a proactive thing that you're doing at all of your properties. There's nothing worse than getting a bug call. It really is just such an awful inconvenience just at any time. Interrupted dinners, interrupted movies at the theater, all because of a freaking little bug. This person is worth their weight in gold. You can pay anywhere from 50 to 80 bucks every single month, and they will come out weekly or bi-weekly or monthly to come spray your place. But a really nice thing about your pest control guy is that when you pay him this monthly fee, it does also usually include emergency emergency visits. So if there's a mouse at your property, or if there's like a roach or like an ant problem, and you call your pest control people, so long as it's not at night and it's during the week, they'll usually come out that day or the next day and remedy that. And oftentimes that just puts a guest at ease that you're even trying to fix the problem. I had many times where a guest has reported a bug problem, and I got my pest control out there. They came out and they're like, we put out a little sugar ant trap out there, and then the guests were like super grateful for it, and I didn't have to pay extra for it because I was already paying the monthly fee. There's something you take away from this video, is that most of the time you need to be proactive, not reactive. You can proactively find solutions before anything actually becomes a problem versus trying to solve a problem during a guest stay and not only solve that problem, but deal with the disgruntled guest. And that's why your pest control person is crucial. Number 4, very important, required for most people, but not gonna be applicable to everyone, and that's your lawn maintenance crew, your landscapers, people that mow your yard, the people that pull out weeds. This is really important too because a lot of people tend to focus on the inside of their property, and then they make the outside of their property somewhat presentable, then they oftentimes forget that there's a yard and that yard needs to be cut. There's nothing more unappealing than paying $500 a night, showing up to your Airbnb, and then thinking, oh, this place looks like it was deserted years ago. And you don't want someone's first impression to think that you have a janky place. I actually just went to my properties yesterday and saw that the landscaper never showed up, didn't actually cut the yard, so it's never been cut before, and the grass is like this tall. Luckily, it was just a small strip of grass on the sides of the house. You wouldn't really see it unless you looked over, but nonetheless, it was still there, and I was mortified because I was like, oh my gosh, all the first impressions of people, if they saw this place, is that I hadn't cut the grass, and it was a super embarrassing moment of self-reflection. I'm gonna tell you right now that in general, every single one of my landscaping crews have been Hispanic, and they typically require cash. Because of this, it requires a little bit of problem solving on how to actually get my landscaping crew paid. The same is sometimes the case with my cleaning crew. It can be a little tough to pay them sometimes, so that's why when I'm negotiating the cleaning crew, they have to have an electronic way I can pay them. But my landscapers, all in all, none of them are usually on Venmo, Zelle, Cash App, anything like that. I always try to find a landscaper that can work with me and sign up for something like that because they are the hardest ones to pay. Again, I don't want to overgeneralize here. Mexican, just a friendly reminder for those of you that are probably writing angry comments right now that's like, how dare you general... Listen, sometimes you just got to know the landscape you're working with. You know what I'm saying? But here's what I really love about landscapers. They usually end up being one of the most, if not the most reliable person on my team because landscapers have routes around the city. They're usually organized by day. They have certain routes every single week. And so they never really miss a landscaping appointment, except for the guy that never showed up to my place. But I didn't have a working relationship with him. I didn't know him. So yeah, in that particular case, it didn't work out. But when I know my dudes and I pay them, they always show up. Just make sure that you have a system for paying them and understand that most of the time, they're not gonna let you or be comfortable with you issuing a 1099. So when you're hiring them, you may want to bring up the W-9 conversation. This actually goes towards everyone on the team, especially your cleaners. This is always a very finicky conversation with your cleaners. By law, if you pay someone more than $600 every single year, you got to issue them a 1099. It's always a finicky conversation. And if you don't issue the 1099, then I'm relatively certain you're going to be unable to write off that income. And then you'll be taxed on that income instead of being able to write off that expense. So super important note there. Also, just a quick note here. Remember I said cleaners don't like to clean inside and outside oftentimes and you run into issues there. You can negotiate with your landscaper to be the keeper of the outdoor aspect of your property too. Just note that might come with the cost. Number 5 is going to be the sexy pool guy. Listen, it could just be a pool guy, but if it's a sexy pool guy, that's great. Good for you, Margaret. You're getting out there. I'm happy for you. Anyway, you need a pool person, and this is really only gonna be applicable if you have a hot tub or a pool. If you don't, then you can, I guess, fast forward, but I'll get through this one relatively quickly. Listen, people book your Airbnbs specifically because you have a pool or a hot tub, and so if you have those things and they are dirty, if there's 3 leaves in the pool, they will ask you to send out your pool person to come and clean it versus just grabbing the net themselves and cleaning it, right? And this is why your pool person is so important. You need them to show up. You need to make sure that they clean. But the thing is, sometimes you might have like, I don't know, a really weird span of time. You might have 4 or 5 days between guest days that come before the next time the pool guy's supposed to come out, and then the guests arrive and then it's dirty and then they get mad. So you need a pool person or a hot tub person that is willing to come out on call. They do typically charge a fee for this. This isn't like Pest Control where they come out for free for house calls and emergency calls. Pool people do charge a fee, and pools are something that you're not gonna have as much of an issue with, to be honest. list, but hot tubs are real finicky. You've heard me on the channel over the years. You know that I really freaking hate hot tubs, but they are super important to boosting your revenue. They are an amenity that people seek out, and they do break down all the time. Things go wrong with hot tubs all the time. You need a reliable hot tub person. This is so important, really honestly, more than some of these other things, because if you don't get that hot tub clean ASAP, your guest will ask for a refund, and sometimes you'll have to refund your guest $300, $400, $500, $800. I've had to do it so many times over my career, which is why I hate hot tubs. But when you find someone that's willing to get stuff done for you and make sure that you have a properly cleaned and pristine hot tub, they are worth their weight in gold. Last one, number 6. This is someone you hopefully never call, but it is an important vendor to have when you need them, and that's your contractor. I had a contractor build my tiny house in Joshua Tree, California. Never need to call him except for 1 or 2 times where I've had a roof leak, the same problem, and I call him and said, dude, there's a roof leak, there's guests here, can you fix it? And he was like, yes, stand by my work, I'm gonna get my roof guy out there. So when you think about contractors, they typically have a team. They have their own Avengers that they use when they're bidding out jobs, and they subcontract out and they make a fee on top of that. So in my particular instance, my contractor called the person that literally installed the component of the home that was faulty and causing the roof leak at my property. Both times they got addressed very, very quickly. Hopefully, you'll never really need a contractor, but there are some things that fall outside of the scope of a handyman. Handyman can do things like patch up drywall, maybe do a small roof patch, but if you need a new roof, then your contractor needs to be the person to do that. It's not really gonna be a handy person. Handymen are typically the people that you're paying anywhere from $0 to, let's say, $1,000 max. But once you get into a job that's like $1,000 to $10,000 and beyond, that's when your contractor comes into play. I probably don't need to harp on why your contractor needs to be reliable. Just understand that there are so many horror stories out there of contractors taking your money and leaving town, which is kind of what happened to me when I built my mini golf course. I paid a contractor and he walked out $6,000 into the job, and I had to bring in a whole nother contractor to fix that problem for me. So understand that your contractor is not gonna be the cheapest person on your team. They are the most expensive, but they are also the most expensive if you make them the cheapest person on your team. And so I'll end with this. You might be asking yourself, Rob, how do I find any of these Avengers? I'm gonna tell you this, first-hand referrals. If you can get a first-hand referral from your realtor, that's gonna be the #1 way to do it. Or if you're in a community of hosts, or if you're like in my Facebook group, the Airbnbs, for example, you can post there and you can say, hey, I'm in Joshua Tree, I need a handyman, does anyone have recommendations? And then in theory, you'll get a ton of recommendations. So if you can get a recommendation from someone who has used that vendor in the past, your likelihood for success is significantly higher. And that is it. Those are your Airbnb Avengers. Those are the people that you need on your team, and the people that are gonna make up 80% of all the work that goes into self-managing your short-term rental, whether you have 1 or 40. Well, I hope this was helpful. If it was, give me a like button, hit the subscribe button, come back next week. I love to teach this stuff, and thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one. Bye.